Hello, and welcome to this edition of Life at Ordway, the podcast where we interview some of the most interesting and talented employees we have at the company. We call them Ordmates. My name is Steve Kiefer. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer here at Ordway, and I'm happy to welcome our featured guest today, who is Yoni Razin, the Director of Business Development. Welcome, Yoni.
Hey, Steve. Thanks for having me today. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for making the time. Well, why don't we start at the beginning? I know Director of Business Development means different things at different companies and can often be a broad role. Maybe you just tell us a little bit for introductory purposes about what your day-to-day responsibilities entail.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's definitely a pretty broad role for sure, especially in a company such as Ordway where the product touches on so many different departments. Every day is unique. And it's one of the things I love about being in a startup and my past with startups. Every day is a little different, which I really appreciate. My specific scope of role today, I guess, can kind of be broken down to two main categories. One, in terms of actual business development, marketing initiatives, generating brand awareness, going to events, trade shows, networking, talking with people, just spreading the story of Ordway and the value that Ordway brings to people. The next area of focus is closing revenue, bringing in revenue. What are the deals that we can actually bring in, whether it's through partnerships, channels, whether it's through direct other B2B customers, closing these deals that move the needle for our internal metrics as a business so that we can continue to grow, and understanding from those businesses the scalability that Ordway can have in its own way, not just naming other companies how to be scalable, but how does Ordway fit into the larger market trends and where Ordway is going as a business and developing over time.
Pretty broad scope. We'll come back to that in a second, but I want to first kind of maybe take back to like, what was it you were doing before Ordway? Just looking through your background, I know you had done some interesting roles in the House and Smithsonian. I know you founded a bunch of different companies. Talk to us about your career journey before Ordway.
Yeah, it's definitely a fun one, definitely unique, and I wouldn't have changed it for the world for sure. Going back, I think I'd have to kind of start with college. Like most 21, 22-year-olds in college, I had absolutely no idea what I wanted to do. And for reference, this was about 12 years ago now. I had no idea what I wanted to do in college. First, I wanted to do architecture, and I kind of fell in love with that. And then I focused on politics. I was pre-law. I was a history major. So being a history major, I did intern for the Smithsonian. I did work on the Hill. I was trying to go into politics, but spending what, like 6-7 months on Capitol Hill was enough for me. I realized quickly I was not a fan of being inside politics. And luckily, though, the same time I was interning on the Hill, one of my best friends in college was in a startup incubator. And the first few months, I was kind of the friend, just giving the free advice and being there to support my other friend. And that led to me being employee number one for the startup in college. Now, okay, being employee number one in a startup in college where you have no real world experience is 100% trial by fire. We were just going out to every single event, every trade show, every marketplace we could find. We were just trying to sell a product. It was a direct to consumer product. So we had to do a lot of customer facing samplings of the product directly to people. And the amount of exposure that I had with that as first employee was pretty remarkable. And I consider myself pretty lucky to have been able to be a part of it to begin with. I was able to meet with so many influential names that many people will recognize. We're talking about multi-millionaires and billionaires, business people that you've seen on TV, you see them in articles, and having to go to investor pitches, having to go to startup conferences and talk to these people and try to pitch to them and sell them what our story was definitely an experience. And throughout my journey as that employee, we had to hustle. I had to learn how to do the startup hustle, so to speak, as they like to say, right? Yep. Where at first I was just doing social media for the company, but then we needed a website. So I learned how to do websites. So I learned, JavaScript, HTML, and I built us a website, built us an e-commerce store. But then I realized, hey, we need to redo our brand. So then I learned and I studied everything I could find online about branding and creating a new brand. And from there, I actually won a brand award. One out of 530 something other products, we won a brand award. And because of that, I then got some on the side consulting work. I had other startups come to me and say, hey, we love what you did here. Can you help us? And I said, sure. And that kind of carried me for the next few years as a side hustle, where I was consulting with startups, consulting with local small businesses, and helping them with their marketing and their branding, all that stuff.
Fun
Within
stuff.
that, yes, absolutely. Within that period, though, I realized that I found like a love of branding and just trying to figure out the different puzzles of how to help a company go from point A to point B. And I love that challenge. So I actually then took some of the lessons from there and I started my own company, which the first one, which failed.
So this is startup number 2.
Yeah, startup number 2. It
Okay.
was an e-commerce clothing apparel store. We tried to build it when the drop shipping
Yeah, I remember that.
drop shipping was everywhere. You saw those ads everywhere, and it didn't go that well. Didn't go that well for sure. However, uh, I did start another company
So
a
this
few
is
months after that one.
number 3 for those of you
Number 3,
counting at
yeah,
home, right?
yeah. The third company, we did quite well. We did remarkably well within a very short period of time. Surprisingly well, surprised me and my main partner and everyone else in the company. In the span of 9 months, we went from nothing to 12 different contractors um, and a few million in revenue. And granted, a lot of it was
Wow.
passive revenue, but it was still revenue. It was still revenue that we were pulling in. And I had an offer from a larger brand in the same industry to acquire us. And I said, sure, why not?
That's great. Yeah, I mean, what
I,
the venture capitalists only try to get 1 out of 10 to be a success. So 1 out of 3 is pretty good, I think.
I felt pretty lucky in that time. Yeah, it was 1 out of 3, but really I viewed it as 1 out of 2 because it was my baby,
Okay,
right? And
got
one
it.
of the lessons that I had that I attribute to the success of the second one was that I learned from the first one that it's easier and better. It's better to have a solution or a product within a very small niche market that's growing fast versus being another voice in a very loud, oversaturated market that's growing slowly. So we were in a very niche market. There was a lot of need for it growing fast. And I attribute that to being what really kind of took us off in the span of those 9 months.
Yeah, makes sense. Makes sense.
Yeah.
So then the transition to Ordway, and I know when we hired you, you weren't the director of business development. Talk me through kind of how you started with Ordway and what was the onboarding experience like, and how did you get promoted so quickly?
Yeah, absolutely. So after having my own businesses, and then there was another one that I didn't mention. So there's really 4 startups before Ordway, right? But between all of those, I did not want to be. I didn't really want to be in charge of everything. I kind of just wanted to be an employee. I wanted to have someone else tell me, "Here's point A, there's point B. Help us get to point B." And having my own business, multiple businesses, I had to do a lot of financial analysis, a lot of financial prepping for the investors,
Right.
and living in Arlington, Virginia at the time, I had a close friend who had mentioned that his partner was working at Ordway. And I had been randomly telling him I was looking for a fast growing startup. I wanted to be with a startup that was hungry, that was looking to grow, that was growing in a space that was rapidly growing as well. I could look to join a team where I could actually have a real impact and not just be um, a drone, so to speak.
Yep. Yep.
Not
A
that
number.
that's yeah, not that's a bad thing. I just never saw myself as being um, one out of 20,000 employees. Ordway is
Yep.
now my first W-2, right? This is my first like employee role. And I saw Ordway they had an SDR posting, and I said, hey, I kind of like the website. I like what it's trying to do because they're trying to solve billing and complex revenue issues. And have my own business, I struggled immensely with billing and connecting our CRM with the accurate billing and the accurate invoicing and chasing down customers for collections and then
Yeah.
having reports on all that. I struggle with all that. So when I saw something like Ordway saying this is what we do, I said, ooh, I've been that person they're trying to sell to. There's this SDR role. I've never been an SDR. Let me see if I can jump in that role. So I applied for it, and I'm very glad I did.
Yeah, I mean, makes perfect sense. When you're going through all the different companies that you started, we end up selling to a lot of early stage companies that are kind of in startup mode, maybe similar spot. So you had that real world experience of trying to do all the collections and AR and reporting on the different metrics and accounting and billing and all that great stuff. So, amazing background, amazing story. Like, what is it that's kept you here? I mean, you've been with Ordway well over 2 years now. I mean, how have we been fortunate enough to keep you around? What is it you like about working here?
Well, to start, you all keep promoting me.
Well,
Secondly, I I really do enjoy I really like the product. It's a good product. Moving from an SDR role to an AE role, now to my current role, the exposure I get to have in at Ordway, where I am talking with C-suite executives, and I'm leading technical discussions with stakeholders in accounting, finance, engineering, product, RevOps, sales, like all these different facets of the business. And I am being exposed to so many different business models, so many pricing models that I am learning a lot. I'm adding all this stuff to my own toolbox. And at some point in the future, I would like to, branch out again and do my own thing. But for now, I'm learning so much about what other people are doing and how they're doing what they're doing and how they're solving their problems as they scale and grow. I also
yeah,
appreciate that.
I was going to say that's one of the things that I love about the company as well. It's just all the cool new startups, whether it's generative AI or blockchain or cybersecurity. A lot of them end up, in conversations with us about the complexity of their business model, and it's often something that the founders don't necessarily think about is how do you operationalize the finance and accounting aspects of this, but it's a huge challenge. So anyway, though,
Yeah,
you were going to share.
I was kind of just going to say that I've also really appreciated how Ordway's like a family, where because we are that fast growing startup, but we're also, we're all grinding it out. And we're all kind of wearing multiple hats as we need to. I have direct lines of communication with all the executives in every department, and
Yeah.
it has. I don't feel like I'm just a number here, right? I feel like I'm actually making a difference, and I can see that I'm making a difference. So I really appreciate that aspect, which was something I really wanted to, have in a role, being able to make a difference, right? And I know everyone kind of says that, but when I can see that the actual bottom dollar amount in our revenues have been impacted by my work as an AE last year, where I closed the single most net new accounts on
Right.
our team. And as an SDR, I brought in the most net new leads before being an AE. So seeing those
I
numbers,
think we just answered the question about why you keep getting promoted, but
maybe, maybe. I also attribute it to, I believe, I think you've said this before, that I have the mindset of the people I'm selling to,
yeah.
the startups, the mid market people, and I've been in their shoes, so I can relate. And it's easy to talk to people who you can relate with. So yeah, the product and the family. That's the team.
Good stuff. Well, thanks for spending the time with us. Really appreciate it. And for those of you that are watching, if you're considering a career change, we're always looking for ambitious, talented, hungry hustlers like Yoni. So we'd encourage you to check us out. You can see all our open positions at ordwaylabs.com. Thanks again, Yoni. And we look forward to seeing all of you on another edition of Life at Ordway in the near future.